when we were talking about big data and privacy and trust, one of the issues came up was the complexity of making the right decisions about what to keep, what to forget, what's private, what's public, when is it being used for the advantage of the consumer, when is it being used against them. And that really brings up a topic that has been current in the media. There have been a number of critics who've claimed that any use of data is somehow an abdication of human judgment. I'd like to talk a little bit about how people actually use data to make better judgment.
I mean, I think fundamentally, if you have more data, you can make better decisions. It gives you what I think of as a very high-resolution picture of what you've done, of where you've been. And if you're trying to decide what to do next, how to optimize your business, that's what you need to start. You need to first understand where you are before you can decide where to go next. And so I think the more data that folks can collect, the better jobs they can do at whatever they're doing in general.
Yeah, there is still a real risk that people rely on the algorithm. We've seen this, for example, in a number of airline crashes where increasingly we have effectively algorithmic flying. The autopilot runs the plane, and the pilots have just not experienced enough actual flying to deal with a crisis. Perhaps that's what happened in the flash crash, in the stock market. The algorithms outracing the humans. Do we expect more of that in future? How do we deal with it?
I don't know if we're going to have more. I don't think we'll have less or more. I think bugs are always there, and we find them and we fix them. But you can't fix them until you found them, and sometimes you don't find them until they're in the field, and you suffer some. You try to engineer things, to avoid catastrophic failures, and mostly we manage that. So I think it's just a hazard of, there's hazards when you step out the door when you do anything, and I think the benefits have generally far outweighed the costs in deploying these kinds of technologies.
Yeah, and I think you're right too. There's a lot of focus in the tech industry on how do we build systems that are less fragile and more resilient and able to be adapted more easily in response to that new data.
I mean, and you can't afford to not understand how a system works. If you're going to improve it, it's going to evolve. You've got to know what its weak points is. You've got to know why it's functioning the way it's functioning. Unless it's functioning perfectly, and things rarely do.
Right, and that really brings me to a key point. We have a lot of people who are starting to talk about the need to regulate data, but they don't really understand how it is actually used. How do we get more people who understand this new world of big data into positions where they are committed to improving policy?
I think it's just a matter of time. I think with mostly people are learning about what technology can do, and we can help that by having folks describe more of what they've done with data. But I'm reminded of, I was working in tech search engines in web search engines, and between say 96 and 98, the number of words that people typed into a search box doubled, and it was because they had learned and gotten a good model and understood that was required and how things worked. And I think as people get more accustomed to data systems, they'll learn how to take them into consideration and when they're making decisions.